Hey there, everybody. This is sXeblues, and I am a huge anime fan. Not all-encompassing. I don't like every single kind of series there is out there. I'm very picky, but what I thought I'd do is give a sort of top 10 list-esque version of my all-time favorite anime series. And rather than top 10, I've decided to make a top 15. So this is going to be my top 15 favorite anime series. Some of them are going to be dual series, counted as one because it may be interconnected and so forth. But hope you'll enjoy this, and let's jump right in. So at number 15 comes Outlaw Star, and I include in it the spin-off series Angel Links since it takes place in the same universe. This is a decent series. I really like the animation and the somewhat humorous escapades that happen in this like fantasy sci-fi futuristic setting. At number 14, I'd like to mention Tideline Blue. Now, originally I saw a series called Full Metal Panic, which was primarily set on a submarine, and it's a good series, but I like this series a lot better. I felt the dramatic elements with the two brothers, one being sort of high class, warrior-esque, and the other sort of being like a hippie rebel type of thing. But just the dynamics of those I really thought were cool. So, coming at number 13, I would like to mention Darker Than Black. This is a more recent series, at least over here in the U.S., and by recent I mean in the last few years. I really got really intrigued by the sort of superpowered-esque feel of the show. There are people that have powers, and some use it for good, some use it for evil. And it's kind of like an anime-esque take on superheroes in a sense. Coming in at number 12, I'd like to pick the series Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now, for me, I've seen the entire original aired series. I had the DVD box set, but I find I much prefer the more recent film adaptations because it condenses it, cuts out a lot of the, hullabaloo that was going on throughout the series, and I'm very curious to see how they end the film series, being that the way the original televised series, the way that ended was kind of like, WTF moment, if you will. But coming in at number 11, I'd like to mention this. This is a sort of funny series called Mezzo. This was a sort of sequel, a TV series sequel, if you will, to a film that was somewhat more adult. In fact, way much more adult. But this series, I like it in that it's reminiscent to one of my favorites, Cowboy Bebop, which will be later on the list of my top 15. In that it has like a trio of wacky characters, and then the characters they interact with, but there's sort of like guns for hire, for working for the good guys and things like that. But coming in at number 10, I'd like to mention Burst Angel, which again is kind of along the same themes of different characters getting together and working toward a purpose. And this is a series that features giant mecha robots and everything, and it's one that stands out as being really cool. Coming in at number 9, I'd like to mention Witch Hunter Robin, which I love the depth of this series, and some of the twists and turns that it takes, and the character developments and the team coming together from all the different perspectives toward a similar goal. In this particular series, this team ends up finding out that there are machinations working against them and things like that. But I like the whole supernatural, people with powers yet again type of series. Coming in at number 8, I'd like to mention this is Les Chevaliers d'Eon. And I love the sort of like, I guess it's 18th century, I might be wrong on that, French, the whole style, the setting of the show, and this is kind of loosely based on real life. But this series turns that entire thing on its ear with mysticism and an actual transformation that takes place with the spirit of this character's sister and everything. It's very interesting, and I just love the setting and, the very classical feel of it. Coming in at number 7, I'd like to mention sort of quadruple series, if you will, the Dot Hack series, which in this case I want to highlight all three of the main anime series as well as the follow-up movie. So that includes Dot Hack Sign, which was the first series. It includes Dot Hack Legend of the Twilight, which is not actually considered to be part of the mainstream series as Sign is, but, you know, I still include it. That also includes Dot Hack Roots, which is actually part of the mainstream storyline, kind of a direct continuation from Sign. And then finally, the follow-up film was Dot Hack GU. And all four of these, you know, I get really sucked into it because it reminds me a lot of like playing Final Fantasy and that kind of thing. There's a lot of that element of being in a massive multiplayer online RPG world, whereas Final Fantasy isn't massive multiplayer, the ones that I've played anyway. And the show really, you know, encompasses that whole mentality of being a gamer. Coming in at number 6, I'd like to mention Black Lagoon, which is, again, a more recent series in the last few years anyway. And there's a lot of cursing going on in this show, but I like the realism that it has, talking about, you know, gangland kind of things and organized crime and disorganized crime, if you will. And again, not without its unique characters. Coming in at number 5, I'd like to mention Daphne and the Brilliant Blue. This series I just happened upon by accident. I was interested in the artwork, and when I finally got around to getting the box set and watching the entire series, I was overwhelmed by how deep it actually is. And there's a few little twists and turns with the main character having like sort of amnesia and trying to reclaim her memories and things like that. And one of the biggest memory reveals toward the end of the series is just so dramatic, and like I remember for about 3 days after I saw that I was still going on about, wow, I didn't see that coming. That was so impactful, you know. But coming in at number 4, I'd like to mention FLCL, or Fooly Cooly. This is only 6 episodes long, but it is dramatic in the impact it had on the anime, you know, genre, essentially, because they pull out all the stops, really, with the different kinds of animation style that they do with the show, and it's very comedic and very action-packed. Of course, this is involving giant mechas and, you know, alien monsters, and the girl at the forefront standing next to the Vespa, as it were, and the boy in the background. You know, it's his journey, essentially, and the characters around him are all very unique in their eccentricities, and, you know, it's just really, it's a frenetic series, too. That's the thing. It definitely keeps going at a very drastic momentum. But it's a really enjoyable series if you watch it from beginning to end, and I've watched it several times. Coming in at number 3, I want to mention Samurai Champloo. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite series. The trio of characters usually going through a lot of bum-out situations, and the series came around in my life at a time when I was pretty much going through the same basic thing, and even still am at times. And, you know, I love the trio of characters. You have Mugen, Jean, and Fu. And Mugen and Jean are kind of, you know, polar opposites in a sense, whereas Jean is the more laid-back, methodical. Mugen is much more the rambunctious, impetuous, and will take anybody on that he has to. Jean usually is more reserved, and Fu is just kind of the complementary in between that, you know. And this show encompasses their journey, their impromptu journey together, in helping Fu find, essentially, no, you know, intended spoiler here, but she's looking for her father, and they all get together, sort of collectively, you know, to help her attain that goal. Coming in at number 2, I'd like to mention the entirety of the Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex series. This includes Standalone Complex, Second Gig, as well as Solid State Society, the film that followed the two series. This usually is kind of tied for number 1 on my list of favorites with what I ended up picking for number 1, because the depth of this series, set in a futuristic Earth, cybernetics and things, and internet and interaction along those lines are much more advanced, and people have been able to supplement their body parts with cybernetic parts, and even to the point where people can exist wholly in a cybernetic body. And this series focuses on a lot of political aspects as well as criminal methodologies, and there are, ironically enough, standalone episodes, but each series has an overarching theme, and I just love the characters, the Major Motoko Kusanagi, Bato, Aramaki, Togasa. They're just, I love the English voice actors and actresses that bring these characters to life, essentially. But coming in at number 1, as you may have guessed, since I mentioned this twice already, is Cowboy Bebop. And I love this series to pieces. As I say, depending on my mood, usually Cowboy Bebop and Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex in its various forms, usually they're both vying for the top place. But I always go back to Cowboy Bebop as being the number 1 favorite because, in a sense, while not the first anime show I ever got into, I think that would fall to Ghost in the Shell. But this one just moreover, it has so many themes that I relate to, and so many themes that I just get entertainment out of. And, so it's just one of the all-time greats. And I think the best thing I can say about Cowboy Bebop is, if you're not an anime fan, give this show a try, because it very much doesn't have a full-on anime feel. It has a more worldly feel than straight, Japanese animation. And I think that's why this series has been so widely accepted the world over, because it very much so is not defined by the anime genre that it was created in. And for anybody who's interested, there's even rumors of a Keanu Reeves playing the main character, Spike Spiegel, in a big screen sort of, I guess it would be like 3D IMAX big screen adaptation of Cowboy Bebop. There was also a follow-up film called Knockin' on Heaven's Door, which is notable for possibly taking place between the last 3 episodes, just before the last 3 episodes of the series. But very cool series, and just my all-time favorite anime. And so that's my top 15 favorite animes of all time, anime series. An honorable mention, which I forgot to include in the list, is the series Big O, and it would have been in the top 5. This would have ended up being top 16 had I not forgotten it, but it's a really cool series, and I guess you could say it wasn't included because the second part of it is actually was made by different people, I guess, at the last minute kind of thing, and it's not always cohesive, the two-parters, one straight follow-through. But in any case, it's a really awesome series, and I wanted to include it as at least an honorable mention. And so I hope you enjoyed this top 15 favorite anime list. Let me know if you have favorites of similar or different kinds. And thanks for watching. Peace.